Greetings, squaddies, once again. Welcome back to the Fearless Slayer's Bestiary. As always, I am D. You'll notice that I decided to start this one off a little bit differently. What we're hunting today, in today's guide, this is the Fearless Slayer's Bestiary for the Shrike. Now, the Shrike is probably one of the beasts, the behemoths that I have the most experience with, or the majority of my experience with. It and its cousin, the Scrave, are my main targets when I need to just relax and hunt something. The Shrike here at tier 2, and at actually other levels as well, has 9 attacks. It sounds like a lot. You gotta keep in mind one of those is the Enrage. The Shrike is an interesting beastie in that it is ultimately it's the only one I would say, aside from maybe like a couple of the higher level, like the tier 4 stuff, that actually presents any direct threat to Ramsgate, the city that we come from in this game, here on the Shattered Isles. That's because the Shrike can also be called by another name. You can also call it, if you want, an Owlbear, because that's effectively what it is. The same with the Scrave, but we'll get to the Scrave when we actually go to that hunt. Now, the Shrike has a good mixture of attacks. A lot of its stuff is melee range, but a good number of them actually also have a good strong ranged component. In fact, there you can see the beastie, just in the distance. It is a dangerous beast because this is one where you have to really pay attention to where you're standing, as well as a lot of the tells are a little bit more subtle than they were with the Gnasher. Now, its 9 attacks all center around the same concept, that is wind. The Shrike is a big air beastie. The only one of its attacks that really doesn't have a wind element to it is its charge attack, which I'll try and show you. Also, the Shrike was one of the ones that got a big update during what's known as the Evolving Wilds, which introduced the elemental pikes. But, since we're here, let's go ahead and get into this fight. This is a very dangerous fight. Even on tier 2, I could possibly lose this one if I'm not careful. But we're into it now, so let's give it a shot. There's that right there is its wind blade. You hear the weird little charge up noise, and it did the little, I call it kind of like a Hadouken Kamehameha pose. It does that, and then it launches a wind blade. On its own, the wind blade goes as a vertical attack. During the Enrage, that actually adds, it can actually add a second one where it swipes with its left hand instead of its right. There you saw it do it again. It always fires the vertical wind blade from the right hand. While enraged, it can fire one from the left hand that goes out horizontal. Both of them are actually very dangerous if you get hit, but they're easy enough to dodge if you're paying attention. That right there is the claw swipe. It's normally a 4-claw combo, like you just saw there. However, it can also limit itself to just doing 2 attacks as opposed to doing a full 4. That right there I call the air hammer. It does that. It kind of twists a little to the right, then spins into an aerial jump where it hovers. This is a very dangerous attack because it has a key timing. Namely, to actually dodge the air hammer successfully, you have to wait until the Shrike actually starts to descend. Don't just start dodging once it's in the air, because you will get hit. In fact, you saw me get hit by an attack I'll talk about in a second. But also, at tier 3 and up, that right there, the air hammer, has an extra component. It can actually add a second smaller hop that lets it do a secondary attack, so you really got to keep moving. The secondary attack, it's pretty easy to dodge if you're paying attention. A couple of other attacks I'll talk about, of course. Let's see which one it uses next. Well, there's the claw combo again. You'll notice that it goes up onto its hind legs. It always starts the swipes with the right claw. And like I said, it will always do it in, I didn't say this earlier, but it will always do it in an even number. And it's either 2 or 4. Now we saw the tornado there, where it gathers a little bit of wind to itself, spreads its wings, and jumps backward and flaps once. That tornado will go in a straight line ahead of it. It doesn't veer off to the sides or anything. That is important to note. And you can actually see the tornado form. If you're too close, it will hit you before you even see the tornado form, so be careful about that. Now you saw where it kind of shrieked looking at the ground and then charged forward. It can also charge without the Shriek, but that is usually a good indicator. The charge hits pretty well and it will knock you over, just like the air hammer. If you're under the air hammer, if you're under the hands directly when it hits with that, you'll be knocked flat without a chance. You won't be knocked to the side, you'll just be knocked straight to the ground. The charge occasionally leads into that attack, which I call the Hunting Raptor. I'll talk about the Hunting Raptor on its own. The charge, though, it crouches a little bit and then charges normally if it's going to do it blind. As long as you can get to the side, you should be okay. You saw me do something kind of dangerous there, where I just kind of rolled really close in on the hunting. Oh, shh. Yeah, the Wind Blade doesn't hit very hard, but this is tier 2. You gotta keep in mind. Now, the Hunting Raptor. This is probably the biggest attack that the Shrike has. Let's see if I can get it to do it. So I can show you the main tell, because it can do this on its own. It can do this straight blind, but it'll also do it as a follow-up to a lot of attacks. Come on, birdie. Alright, you saw the crouch there? And there. It's subtle, but the crouch for the tornado, the head is about half its length, it's about half a head off the ground, the Shrike's beak. When it goes into the Hunting Raptor, the head is basically almost flat on the ground. There, you saw me get hit because I rolled too early. That right there is a reposition. It does damage if you're under it when it lands, but otherwise, as long as it doesn't land on you, you're fine. The Hunting Raptor, like I was saying though, is the biggest attack the Shrike has, for a couple of reasons. First off, the main hitbox on it is the claws. The wings, when they spread, when it launches itself into the Hunting Raptor, the wing spread will hit you if you're too close to it to the side, but if it's already in flight, the wings are not a hitbox. The claws are. And right there, you saw me use it, I messed it up, but that is... The Hunting Raptor is also big because it is your big opportunity. If you have a hammer user, or if you're like me and you're using the Warpike, then if you can fire a shot and hit the beast during the Hunting Raptor, it will fall over. It becomes harder to do this from a side shot, but it is possible. It's just a little more difficult than doing it straight on. Now, the biggest danger of the Hunting Raptor is when the Shrike gets enraged. You'll see the enrage in a moment. Hopefully. But the enrage, it does the same kind of stuff as the Gnasher does, where it starts to generate some red light around itself. And then it will actually spread its wings violently. When I say violently, the wings will hit. And they have a... There, you saw me get hit by the charge because I was an idiot. Actually, no lantern real quick. I'm taking way too much damage. But when I say violently, the wing spread on the enrage will have does have a very strong knockback. You got to be careful. It doesn't do a huge amount of damage, but then again, the Shrike kind of fights in a style more along the lines of death by 1,000 cuts, if you want to use the TV tropes parlance, where only a couple of its attacks hit very hard. Most of them hit a lot, though. That right there is one attack I haven't talked about, the backhand swipe. It only uses that if you're really close, or if somebody's really close. It can hit behind the Shrike, so be careful. But it kind of looks off in the direction it's going to swipe, and then pulls that wing. So if it looks off to the right, it'll pull its right wing, left to the left, and then it'll do kind of like just a backhand. It's got some decent knockback. It's only really an area clear. I tried to roll out of that, but let's see if I can get you to do the Hunting Raptor so I can actually shoot you. Like I said, the Shrike actually got a lot of buffs with the Evolving Wilds, and there we go! Did it right that time. There's another tornado. The Shrike is also the big reason that I wanted to make sure I got the tells down on these. Because with the Evolving Wilds, the tells became much more important, since the Shrike used to follow a very specific pattern with some of its attacks. Like, it would do the Tornado Gust instantly into the Hunting Raptor, and it would also do Charge instantly into Hunting Raptor. Again, I rolled too early for that. Oh, no, that's not the Enrage. Okay, I broke something, so that's going to give me a moment of respite. Alright, I've actually used up that entire rift. There's the Enrage. You saw it gather its red light, and that wind effect when it spread its wings. Well, hopefully it'll do the... Okay, there we go. Now, this is where the Hunting Raptor becomes dangerous. If it does it blind like that, it can actually do it multiple times. I've seen it do it up to about 4 times. I don't have a full count on that, because I only really found that out last time I hunted this thing. The thing is, it doesn't seem to be able to do the multiple swoops on the Hunting Raptor. And there's the double blade, the double wind blade I mentioned. I'm just trying to get over here and get this piece. But it doesn't seem to be able to do the multiple the multiple swoops on the Hunting Raptor if it uses another attack to lead into it. So, like, it did the charge into the Hunting Raptor, so it could only do the one attack. If it blind launches the Hunting Raptor during Enrage, that's when it can do the multiple swoops. The big way to tell, aside from watching to see if it did anything immediately prior, is does it land? If it doesn't land, it's going to swoop again. Any of them is a good opportunity for you to hit it with a shot. Yes, you can. That's also one of the few times where I'd say using the Warpike's Quickfire is actually a very viable option. Because if you're really close, like I was on the Shrike just there for a second, you might not have enough time to get a good charge on your shot to get good accuracy. But then again, you might not need to. I'm willing to trade that hit. I take less damage than you do. The Shrike is also one of the big ones where it's easier for it to escape from you. All of them are actually very good at escaping. I'm also trying to see if I can still trigger something that used to exist. I don't know if it still does on the Shrike. I tried to avoid that. But there used to be some condition, I don't know the exact method for, where the Shrike would do the Hunting Raptor, that swooping attack, and it would then fall over. I thought it was just length of the current combat round before it tried to reset by escaping, but I've never figured it out exactly. That had this thing. A full charge. Oh, there's the Enrage. I am not going to show you the fact that the wings do hurt you if you're there, but... You'll also notice again, just like with the Gnasher, the attacks come out much quicker and hit much harder when a Shrike is enraged. That is a universal thing. Oh, I just noticed I'm at 75% danger, mostly because I was messing around to show you guys attacks early on. I gotta step up my game and beat the crap out of this thing now. I missed that shot. Again, remember the hitbox on that is the claws. So if you can just sidestep to get under the wing, you're fine. I prefer to roll out of the way of the Hunting Raptor just because the claws actually have a decent sized hitbox. And that right there is the escape of the Shrike. But of course we can't let it escape. The reason I call it the biggest threat to Ramsgate alongside the Scrave, its cousins, the Scrave, is because of the wings. This is aside from aside from the Carabac, the Shrike and the Scrave are the only behemoths that can fly that I've seen. I don't know about two of them. I freely admit that I have yet to actually meet two of the behemoths in this game, specifically the Shroud and the Rezakiri. I think I know what I need to do. I just haven't had a chance to do it yet, because fighting the Hellion and the Pangar and the Hellion are really those are the beasties I hate the most, honestly. Basically, they're souped up Nashers, but we'll talk about them when we get there. Into the claw swipes. Yes, I shot it in the crotch. Sue me. It's like, this is a fight for my life and for Ramsgate. Pragmatism will outweigh honor. Plus, this thing is a giant fucking owlbear. This thing probably outweighs me by a good factor of 12. Also, one thing you might have noticed about the Windblade that you just saw there, it is entirely possible to dodge it without rolling. If you are moving... If you're moving laterally, so moving side to side against this thing, you don't have to worry about getting hit by it. The Windblade is actually very simple to dodge. It's probably the least effective of the Shrike's weapons, although with the Evolving Wilds update, they did make it much more dangerous. Dodge that. Basically, as long as you can avoid the hitbox of the hands for the aerial hammer, you're fine. But yeah, see, I'm not even remotely worried about the Windblade. I've still got one shot left. And it's enraged. Come on, beastie. The enrage timer, or the enrage on the Shrike, is also one time where you really want to make sure that you've saved one of your shots, if you're using the Warpike, or even the hammer. Because that multi-swoop, the multi-swoop of the Hunting Raptor, gives you a lot of opportunities. And again, when it's a fight for your life, bow to pragmatism. Do what you need to win. Okay, also don't roll into that, I just found out. That's actually why I specifically did that. I wanted to test and see if that would work. I had enough time to charge my shot and dodge. Alright, it's exhausted. You can always tell when it's going to become exhausted because it will go down on all fours like that, lower its head, and kind of shake it a little bit. The exhaustion for the Shrike is not very long. Unfortunate, but true. And like I said, the backhand swipe can actually hit behind the Shrike, so you gotta be careful with that. I chose to dodge there because of the fact that I was changing direction. I didn't have enough time to build up the momentum I was going to need to avoid that. Okay, I'm surprised that hit me, but it did, so... The Tornado is mostly dangerous because of the knockback and the fact that it can be a good lead-in to the Hunting Raptor. As you can see there. Also, one thing to note about the Shrike, and a little bit less the Scrave, is that they are actually very prone, as their health goes down, to using their Enrage. think the Enrage does actually have a cooldown timer. I just don't know what it is. Alright, I have screwed around way too much with this thing. It's time to kill it. I'm gonna go pretty quiet here because I need to concentrate and beat this bastard. He had less HP left than I thought. There we go, folks. Took me 20 minutes. And I still got an S rank on that. That's surprising. But yeah, the most interrupts is actually very simple to do if you're paying attention. Because like I said, the Hunting Raptor is your big opportunity shot. While it's in the air, you just shoot it once with a good shot. As long as you can land... You really want to aim for the center of mass. Do the sniper thing. Don't go for headshots. Center of mass. All right. Once we get back to Ramsgate, we'll do the regular roundup. Good. I didn't miss anything either. So. Okay, I was gonna say, please don't. Sometimes the game will mess up on that part. So like I said, we'll do the quick roundup of the abilities. So, quick roundup of the Shrike's abilities. Remember, you have the Wind Blade, where it strikes a pose with its right hand by its hip. Makes that weird kind of vacuum noise, then swipes straight up in front of it. This releases a a vertical blade of wind that can hit decently and goes very quickly. You want to be careful because that swipe up can actually hit you if you're close enough, although usually you'll only be that close if you're not the target and one of your teammates is. And remember, during the Enrage at Tier 2, and actually on its own at higher levels, the Shrike can actually unleash a second blast with its left wing that goes as a horizontal. The horizontal blast goes downward, so you can just, if you can actually get farther away, that usually means you can dodge it, but it's better to go side to side. You can also outrun the wind blade, or at least the vertical wind blade, by just moving left or right around the Shrike. It also has its charge ability, where it drops to all fours. Its head is actually it's right about level with its shoulders, if I remember correctly. And then it begins running at its target. Now, the Shrike can actually precede this by running off a short distance, turning, and then doing a full charge. A lot of times, not always, but a lot of good times, this will be followed up by the Hunting Raptor. One of the biggest clues to this, though, is also the Shriek, where the Shrike is actually kind of looking at the ground. I'm going to skip over talking about the Hunting Raptor for a second. Instead, I'm going to talk about the Backhand Claw. Like I said, this is really only, when I said this during the hunt, it's only really used when there's a target nearby, and usually behind the Shrike. It's going to look to the side that it's going to swipe towards, raise that wing across its chest, and then swipe it's a roughly 180-degree arc. Remember though, the backhand claw can hit behind the Shrike, so it's better not to try and stay near it. Just roll away from it, because it doesn't have much distance attack. It has a good amount of area around it. All right, next up, the 4-claw combo. The four claw swipes, depending on how you want to word it. It looks at the target it's aiming for, steps forward, and always leads with a right claw swipe. Then steps forward another time and swipes with the left claw. It can do this it can either just stop. It can stop there after those two swipes, or it can do 2 more swipes, repeating the pattern. It always goes right, left if it's going to do that. Next, the Enrage, where it calls up the red light. You'll see usually around the red light coming up from the ground towards the Shrike's head, if you're watching carefully. It then it then screams. I can't call it a shriek. It just flat out screams and thrusts its wings out to its sides, causing a bit of a blast of wind. And remember, the wings spreading can hit you, and that does do some damage. The Enrage, of course, enables quite a few of its other attacks to be stronger or more dangerous. The big one, though, is still the Hunting Raptor. Like we saw in there, the Shrike will drop to all fours, its head will go very close to the ground, and then it launches its entire body forward with its wings spread out and its talons, the talons it usually walks on when it's on its hind legs, forward. Flies very low above the ground, and the main hitbox is those claws. Remember though, when it spreads its wings to launch, those can hit you. It can hit you there. My main advice there is dodge to the side of the claws to avoid it, unless you're using a war pike or a hammer, in which case, if you can get a shot off, take the shot, knock it down. If you're solo, you might take the hit and lose some advantage, but it also takes away the advantage from the Shrike. If you have teams with you, they'll be able to take advantage of it, even if you take a hit. Now remember, the Shrike, when enraged, can do multiple swoops. We didn't really see it very well in that fight because I stopped it, but it will. Let's see. Yeah. Oh, I actually did skip a couple, but we'll talk about those in a second. But it can swoop. I've seen it do, like I said, about 4 swoops before it stops, and it doesn't seem to be able to do the multiple enraged swoops if it leads into the Hunting Raptor with something else. A couple of other attacks, of course. Namely, it's got 3 others. One of them is not really an attack. It's the reposition. It really doesn't use this very often unless it feels like it's pinned in or threatened too close and it needs to get some space. It kind of drops down a little, not quite as much as any of the other attacks, but it kind of drops a little bit, then jumps, spins midair, does a 180 and lands. Remember, if you get landed on, that does hurt. Not a lot, but it does hurt you. That's not really an attack, though. Then you have the tornado, what I call the tornado gust. We saw it a lot. It leans forward, gathers some wind around it, then it throws itself backward, opening its wings and flapping once. The tornado comes out. Remember, the tornado actually has a hitbox before it visibly forms, so don't be too close if you see the Shrike doing this. That tornado has heavy knockback, not a lot of damage. And then finally, I called it the air hammer, the aerial hammer. I usually call it the flying hammer. It twists slightly to the right, spins into the air in a launch, and then it spreads its wings with it, kind of like I call it its hands, above its head. It hangs there for a second, gets some good hang time, and then starts to descend on a target with a two-fisted slam. The timing on this is important. Remember, if you are the target, or if you are near the target, then wait for it to start descending. Wait for it to start coming down before you roll. If you do it too early, you'll get hit. You do it too late, you'll get hit. The timing on that is critical. And remember that at tier 3 and up, the Shrike can actually add a second smaller hop. It doesn't always, but a lot of times it will. And that second smaller hop, it's a lot like the Gnasher Enrage Tail Slam, where it moves it forward a degree, quite a bit, and then does another attack. So if you see it doing that, get ready to clear the area. Well, folks, I think that really covers it. If you enjoyed this, please feel free to like or favorite the video. You can also leave a comment down below if you have anything you'd like to say. If you want to keep up with me, then feel free to join the squadron. All you gotta do is subscribe to the channel. That does help me out, and I really do appreciate it. She's sitting there in Drask armor. But as for that, folks, I've been D. We've done a good job here keeping Ramsgate safe, and this has been the Fearless Slayer's Bestiary for the Shrike Hunt. I'll see you next week with another Bestiary guide. But until then, good night, and good gaming.